Hi there, good morning. Welcome to this week market analysis. So let's get started by looking at the dollar index first. Now for dollar index over here, we are overall bearish bias. There are two ways that we can look out for it. One is what you see on the chart right now, potentially completing another move back up to give us a 5-wave diagonal structure. If I put in the details, this would be a 5-wave diagonal structure. And in that case, then we'll be expecting one more push before the bigger pull back to the downside. Same target over here at 102.95. Now, alternatively, the market doesn't need to give us another push back up. It can simply be completed with this and an impulsive drop. So what you want to look out for is this significant low around 104.80. If you can get a break impulsively, then that will open up more downside with the same target at 102.95. So in the short run, in the short term, we are looking at potentially bearishness on the dollar itself. And of course, if we translate that to some of the major pairs, we do have some opportunities lined up today. Now, euro dollar is kind of inverse to the dollar index. So the overall structure, we're expecting a little bit more to the downside first. Same thing here to complete the 5-wave internal. And with that, we can then expect a bigger pullback potentially to the upside, and that will be a potential buy trade soon, right? But I think right now we want to wait for the drop for price to target somewhere around 1.0615, 0620. Let it complete the 5-wave structure before we look for another buy trade to the upside, right? So euro dollar probably need to be a little bit more patient. Perhaps it will be a trade closer towards Friday or even early next week. Now for pound dollar here, we do have already a crawl structure, very obvious. And later this afternoon, we do have the UK CPI data being released. So that might be a potential catalyst for a move. And of course, we won't know for sure which direction the news will have an impact on. But from a technical point of view, the pattern seems to suggest that there's a higher probability for the price to actually go higher. And for that reason, we'll be focusing on the buy trade over here. Now, of course, the ideal setup would be a impulsive break above this minor high at 2425 in conjunction with the news release, right? So if the news release, we have an upside surprise, pound strengthens significantly, we get an impulsive break to the upside. That will be the ideal entry. And of course, our breakout entry will be around that high at 2425. We'll instantly able to shift stops to break even, remove the risk, and then look how far this trade can take us, right? Our final target for now is around 1.2745. Right, so this one is a trade that you may want to look out for today. Now, since we're on pound, I'll just jump over to the pound Australia here as well to kind of highlight the similarity between these two pair. Okay, both are of course pound related. Pound Aussie here, we have a very clear three-way structure completed. We have a divergence set up over here as well around a key area. Okay, so the minor high as of now is around 1.2960. Same thing, if you can get an impulsive break above it, then that will be pretty decent, bringing it all the way to 1.9565 as our target. Now, if you were to just filter and choose one to focus, my take here seems to be pound Aussie is actually a little bit clearer as compared to pound dollar, right? The pound dollar complexity is because the dollar index seems to be suggesting one more upside, and therefore the dollar may be a little bit more supported. Whereas for pound Aussie here, if you're buying the pound Aussie to the upside, it suggests that Aussie will be weakening. And of course, if you take a look at the Aussie dollar chart right now, this is pretty corrective in nature. So this suggests that there may be some downside opportunity left. And for that reason, Aussie may be weakening and pound Aussie itself may be a better option between the two. Okay, so that's something to note as well. Now, dollar CAD made a pretty nice impulsive drop last week. So of course, we don't expect the market to keep moving in one direction all the time. Right now, we're basically expecting a pullback. And if we can get a corrective pullback, that will be a decent sell continuation for us, right? So this one here, we are bearish buyers. I don't suggest to be focusing on a buy right now, but you probably just want to remain neutral. Have this in your watch list. Sorry, not remain neutral, but have it in your watch list. We are bearish buyers, but don't be too eager to just jump into the sell, right? Again, you need to give it time to develop into a corrective structure. Dollar yen over here, we're still expecting a little bit more upside, but for me, that's not a very clear setup. The risk to reward ratio may not be fantastic, and for that reason, for me personally, I'll be avoiding this trade, but we do still expect a little bit more upside on that, right? Now for gold, okay, gold over here, we're currently testing the top of the channel. On the lower time frame, we are seeing a lack of momentum to the upside, so this opens up the possibility where we may see a deeper pullback. Now whether the price will actually retest the previous low or just a minor pullback here, I think short term you definitely want to focus more on the downside. Okay? So the idea here is if you go down to the lower time frame, you want to wait for some sign of impulsive move to the downside first, right? Perhaps something like this, continuation to the downside, and then a corrective structure on the hourly. That would give you a sell trade setup, right? So we are bearish buyers short term, but don't be too eager to jump in, right? Always wait for the setup to come to you. Crude oil started to show some sign of a rejection, right? So I've been sharing and covering, don't try to buy this move. It's very corrective in nature. Always be patient. Wait for the next development from price. Now, if we can continue to see a little bit more to the downside here, seems like the momentum is continuing. We want to wait for a corrective structure for us to look for the sell trade to the downside, potentially back towards this zone, right? So we're aiming for this move. Wait for the impulse correction to complete. Then we have a sell trade setup moving forward. S&P, we're still expecting downside over here. Nothing has shifted. So overall, this is completing a true wave move. Around this area, we'll be potentially looking for a buy. So short-term downside, but if we can get a crawl over here, then that would be a buy trade. Okay. Pound yen, I would say be a little bit more patient. Wait for post CPI data. See how the pattern is developing. This is not the most ideal pattern as of now. If this pattern actually appears slightly nearer at the bottom of a channel that looks something like this, that would be ideal, right? But for now, this may still push back down, retest the bottom of the channel before the push up. So since we already have the pound dollar and pound Aussie, that we may potentially have a trade to the upside today. Pound yen over here, I will not be putting too much emphasis onto it. But moving forward, if we can get a drop and then of course a crawl here, we still have the yen news, Bank of Japan on Friday, so that may still be an opportunity that we can take this trade to the upside. Okay, but for today specifically, I'm gonna focus a little bit more on the pound Aussie. Okay, now Aussie yen, we have a break of this structure here. Okay, not very impulsive, but we did get a break and price seems to be able to be sustaining above it. So right now we're just waiting for a corrective structure pullback, and of course near to the bottom of the channel, we can look for a trade to the upside. Okay, very clean, very clear structure over here. BTC quite similar. We can't get a pushback up, so basically any true wave pullback would give us a buy trade setup to the upside. Okay, so this week here there are more patterns, more structures that are developing clearly. Okay, and of course you just don't want to jump into a trade prematurely, right? So some of the structure are clear. We just need to wait for it to develop a three-wave corrective setup, and we'll have a decent potential trade, maybe nearer towards the end of this week or next week. So that's all for me. All the best for the remaining few days of the week over here. And if you're looking at news trading, this week we are not short of opportunity. So today we have the pound. Tomorrow we do have the tomorrow midnight, right? We do have the FOMC. We do have the Bank of Japan coming in as well. We do have the Bank of England coming in this week here as well. So there are definitely a lot of volatility and opportunities to catch a short-term news trade this week. Okay, so you might want to also focus on those while waiting for the swing trade setups to come to us. So that's all for me. All the best, and I'll see you guys in the next one.